marks Black History Month, a time to reflect on the important contributions of Black Canadians, including those who settled in Grey County. Our region was the final stop for many who escaped slavery through the Underground Railroad, and these early Black settlers played a vital role in shaping our community. While we celebrate their resilience and achievements, we must also acknowledge the discrimination they faced, some of which lingers today. It is our collective responsibility to learn, engage, and take action to ensure a more inclusive future. I encourage everyone to explore the history of Black communities in our region. On Monday, February 17th, Grey Roots is open by donation all day, and from 1 to 4, they'll be joined by Junction Community Initiatives to celebrate diversity and Black history in Bruce Grey Owen Sound. Enjoy a fashion show, lunch, and speaker's corner while you learn about our community heritage. Winter operations. So far this winter has been a reminder of a more traditional Grey County winter. We've seen not just a significant amount of snow, but a persistence of snow events unlike the past few years. On behalf of Council, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank all the staff involved in keeping our roads safe and clear. These dedicated members of our Georgian Bluffs team are on the roads each day, working tirelessly to keep our community moving. To date, we have had more than 3 meters of snowfall this winter, and with the ongoing cold temperatures, little of it is melting. We understand that high snowbanks create challenges for residents, and I want to assure everyone that as the weather allows, our team will continue working on pushing back snowbanks and clearing cul-de-sacs. Our first priority is always keeping the roads open, and we appreciate the community's patience as we continue this work. And one final thing, I would like to thank Riel for organizing Friday evening's event with Holly Hogan, the author of Message in a Bottle at Grey Roots. It was well attended. There was space for maybe 10 more people in that auditorium, and listening to her talk about her experiences with looking at plastic around the world was really informative and interesting. So thank you, Riel, for making that happen. That's it for me. Moving on, presentations. We have none this evening. Delegations on agenda items. Any person who wishes to appear before Council regarding an item on the agenda must register with the clerk's office. To register, you can complete the online delegation form at www.georgianbluffs.ca/delegations or call the clerk's office at 519-376-2729, extension 603, or register in Council chambers with the clerk prior to the meeting start time of 5 p.m. And this evening we have Cindy Shanks speaking on the report for the DEL, the draft plan of subdivision application 42T 2022-10 for Georgian Villas Inc. Welcome, Cindy, and you have 5 minutes to address the committee.
Everybody again, Madam Mayor and Council, thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of many of Pebble Beach residents. So after reading the report for the DEL, draft plan of subdivision application, under the application summary, page 3 of 22, it states that the subject lands are located within Cobble Beach in the geographic township of Sarawak. Access to the land is available through an extension to McLeese Drive. And then it also states the proposed draft plan of subdivision will serve as an extension of the first phase of the residential component, includes extension of McLeese Drive. And then on page 6 of the same document, there's the proposed plan of subdivision, which is Exhibit 1 attached, and it shows no reference to a construction road access. In attachment D, under proposed conditions for draft plan approval, 11A states, any entrances to the plan of subdivision shall be designed and constructed to the satisfaction of the township. And 11B says suitable construction traffic routes shall be designed and constructed to the satisfaction of the township. So what does that actually mean? We're very confused about those statements that are in those documents, and could Cobble Beach be used as the access road? We're not sure. So there's a document dated October 2023, and it's the construction access plan. It's Exhibit 2. states the blue line is construction access for clearing, grubbing, ESC measures. The orange line, construction access for undergrounds and road. If this document is still relevant, the blue line is actually a trail. In its current state, this trail would not accommodate excavators and all other construction vehicles needed for Phase 3, the Phase 3 development. This trail is also known as a township. This trail also has a township municipal water main running beneath it, which, to the best of our knowledge, is the only water source and fire protection source for Sudacritty and Presqu'île homes that have municipal water. So I've put in just two pictures. You can see the trail. It's not a road, it's a trail. If this trail is used for construction traffic, is there an engineered plan for erosion and sediment in place, as this trail partially abuts Pond 5 and has large culverts for stormwater management running under it? This is a four-season trail that links all the exterior trails together. It is considered linear parkland within Cobble Beach that is used by residents, yes, public. This trail also accommodates 7 government and information plaques. Using this trail would destroy another ecosystem within Cobble Beach. We would like clarification as to where the dedicated construction access road will be located. That the dedicated construction access road would facilitate construction traffic prior to any work being started in Phase 3, and to use only the dedicated construction access road for all access and exit. As we have mentioned, we have a 2023 document that states Cobble Beach would construct 2 construction roads, yet in 2005, in the documents, they are implying they will use Macleese Drive to access Phase 3. There has been continuous construction traffic down Cobble Beach Drive and Macleese Drive for many, many years. This is a huge safety issue for all, family, friends, neighbors, and guests of Cobble Beach, and it needs to come to an end. The construction traffic on Macleese Drive is primary from a soil plant that transports stripped soil to and from Phase 2 and is located on the corner of Macleese Drive and Pumpkin Seed Lane. Will this soil plant be relocated? Will it be used for Phase 3? If it's not relocated, how will it be accessed? And I have one email from one of the members of Cobble Beach, and he has asked me to read a couple of his concerns. So this has been brought to the attention of council before. He just wants to know, have areas of steep slopes been identified, and will they be staked off so that no building will occur there? What safeguards have been put into place or agreed to protect the fragile pond number 5 ecosystem? Are the existing trails and linkages, parklands, and open spaces encouraged in the PPS 2024? Will they be staked off to remain untouched? And have all the recommendation in the various EISs been adhered to? Will all areas which are not to be grubbed be identified and staked off before conserving? And have the swales identified by the CS or the GSCA been staked off, or will they be staked off so that no building will be allowed there? So we just have some concerns moving forward, and Mayor, Council, Mr. Brenner, and staff, thank you for listening to our concerns today.
Thank you, Cindy, and I think we will bring those up later in the agenda when we are dealing with that item. So we have no other delegations, public inquiries, nothing done this evening. Recommendation reports, we're over to Office of the CAO, updates to the Clean Yards bylaw. And Riel, is this you speaking to this one? I need recommendation and get this on the floor first. So recommendation is that council approve the proposed updates to the bylaw 2017-036, Clean Yards bylaw, and that staff be directed to present an amending bylaw at a future meeting of council. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Day, Councillor Thompson, turn it over to you.
So, council provided direction to review the existing Clean Yard bylaw with a view to supporting pollinators and increasing biodiversity in residential areas of the township. After an in-depth review, the key change is the addition of the definition addition of naturalized spaces, which will allow for increased biodiversity while limiting risk of encroachment or other obstructions. The initiative aligns with Council's directive to enhance pollinator-friendly environments, encourage NOMA-May participation, and provide educational resources on sustainable yard practices. Staff will promote biodiversity-friendly landscaping through online materials, workshops, and partnerships with community organizations. Additionally, efforts will be made to transform the township's administrative office landscaping into a place to demonstrate ecological enhancement. These changes aim to balance environmental sustainability with responsible yard maintenance, benefiting local wildlife, pollinators, and broader community enjoyment.
Thank you. I will now turn to council. Any discussion, any questions for Rael? Any comments? Councilor Coburn?
I know when this topic came up a while ago in terms of our municipal office grounds, we talked about the possibility of having a microforest or a tiny forest, and I just want to put that back on the radar. I think it would be interesting to showcase something like that to the rest of the
Councilor Winters, did you? No. Okay. I thank you for your work on this one. I think there's a nice compromise, nice balance between being able to evaluate the height of turf grass, which will make it easier for the bylaw officer, while also allowing for naturalized areas and then open-ended waiver. So, seeing no other comments, I will call vote. All in favor? That is carried. Next item is shared building services agreement. The recommendation is that staff report DEV 2025-005, a shared building services agreement, be received for information, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the shared building services agreement between the city of Owen Sound and the township of Georgian Bluffs as substantially included in report DEV 2025-005. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councilor Coburn, Councilor Day, and Michael. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton. Just a brief synopsis of the report and the draft agreement that's moving forward. As Councilor is aware, since mid-2022, we've had some challenges on the within the building department in terms of staffing and staffing pressures, recruitment challenges, what have you. And then in April 2024, we entered into a shared building services delivery pilot with Owen Sound. Over this last year, almost since April, the program was running very, very well, the shared services pilot. And last November, we staff brought a report to council for recommendations to bring that shared services pilot into a full shared services program. During those deliberations, council asked that go back to our counterparts at the city and start to draft up an agreement to bring it back to council. And that I can also note that the city of Owen Sound also did something very similar. They brought a report to their council, and their council initially liked the idea, but came back with a recommendation to bring forward a draft report, or sorry, draft agreement. And that's essentially why we're here this evening. We've at the staff level together the agreement in a draft form that's substantially included in the report packages. And just by way of a brief synopsis, the agreement recognizes that a shared service model will provide a chief building official, a deputy chief building official, and a building inspector plans examiner to both municipalities, both the township and Owen Sound, and that a second building inspector plans examiner position will be filled when as needed. And the CBO, the chief building official, the deputy CBO, and Sound staff are in Georgian Bluffs. They act and look like Georgian Bluffs staff. They have a Georgian Bluffs brand new vehicle, the building services pickup truck. They have Georgian Bluffs business cards, have them on there. They're using Georgian Bluffs branded email, and will have apparel uniforms, Georgian Bluffs insignias on them. The other thing that's important to note is that when someone calls into our office, we have just since the beginning of the year, we have Alicia Finchback, who is our development services coordinator. She's assisting me with the department, and she's actually the first point of contact for a lot of the building services inquiries that come in. Alicia is working on becoming a building inspector, so she's kind of familiar with the role and how the process works, and she's prior to her leave was building technician as well. So for the most part, when someone calls in, they are receiving information from a Georgian Bluff staff, and the permit coordination through Cloud Permit is occurring with township staff. We're seeing that. Both Alicia and I are involved in that, and it's more primarily just the physical inspections themselves that are being undertaken by the sound team. As I mentioned earlier, when they are in Georgian Bluffs, they are acting as if they are Georgian Bluffs staff. So with that, the only other two pieces I want to mention are that, as with anything that happens in with the building department, it's a tax neutral department. All fees and costs associated with the building department are actually covered through the building department fees. With this new model, I don't anticipate that the fees will go to at all, at least for this year, possibly even into 2026. We have a fairly healthy reserve, and with the vacancies that we have in the department already, I don't anticipate that reserve will be diminished by any vast amount anytime soon. In conclusion, I just wanted to note that our shared services pilot with Owen Sound has, for the most part, been working very well, very fluidly over the last several months. We regularly dialogue with Sound building staff, and they do attend our office when needed. And in the future, as things do get busier in both Owen Sound and Georgian Bluffs, it seems to be trending upwards. The next hires for that
starts at the municipal level. And time wasted getting building permits, time wasted waiting for inspections, and there's a cost to it. You know, we all stand here, we all say on a regular basis, affordable housing, looking towards the developers to do that. Yet we're costing them money. When you said you look at the cost of this per hour, it works out to $45 an hour over a 35-hour week that we're paying for a deputy or chief building official / deputy chief as a base rate. Whether we use them or not, it's $45 an hour over a 35-hour week. Factor in the $88 an hour that we pay an inspector. We're pretty close to $130 an hour. That hires 2 staff internally. That puts the face of the building department back in Georgia Bluffs. It alarms me when I hear us say we have healthy reserves and we shouldn't dip into them too much. The idea is not to dip into our reserves. We should be looking more fiscally responsible and trying to do it economically and have that service level that I think we've had in the past and that we deserve moving forward. So, I mean, I sit on the fence that we need an agreement, we need interim building inspectors. I'm impressed to see that there's a 30-day cancellation clause in this agreement. It's a 5-year agreement, but it's 30. And I would hope that my colleagues at the table would support that we continue our quest looking for our own building inspectors. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schultes?
I will keep my comments very short, and I will repeat the same comments I made the last time this conversation came up, in that I would support the idea that Georgian Bluffs have our own full-time chief building inspector, and I think that it's something that we should continue to have in our organization. We need to see the open our staff complement and the conversation.
Thank you. Any other comments? The one that I would make that I heard was the fact that everything is in the cloud without a personal contact, and I think that is a concern. If there's anything can be done there to make sure we keep somewhat of a personal contact. I also, when I read the document, item 7.5, Owen Sound shall charge Georgian Bluffs for mileage for the use of a city vehicle in accordance with city policy. I thought they were using our vehicle. It made me curious as to why that one would be in there.
Thank you, Sue, and to you, Mayor Carlton. The part of that agreement is when Owen Sound is, I know it's not a great distance, but when they're coming to and from their town hall to Georgian Bluffs, they're accumulating mileage, and that's covered under the agreement. There is a rare occasion where we may have an inspector out using our vehicles, and yet there's other inspections that have to happen at the same time, and they would be using their vehicle to undertake those inspections. So then both vehicles are out, and in that case, they would also be charging mileage back to us.
Okay, that makes sense. And one other nitpicky little thing, item 9.3. Owen Sound agrees that it shall at all times indemnify and save harmless Owen Sound. I think we want Georgian Bluffs in that paragraph. We could just correct that one. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We are not hearing you, Ryan.
Uh-oh. Is this any better? Still no good?
Now yep, we can hear you now.
I don't know if I did anything. All right,
You're
well, let me
in a
know if I...
But we can hear you.
Let me know if it stops. A bit concerned about this still. I really am worried that we're not providing this service. And so I guess as I read this, I'm a bit worried about the section that says if there's a time that the city experiences an increased workload, they can. So we're paying half the cost of a building official, as I understand, but if they make a determination that this is a detriment to their service, they can reduce the service to us. Am I missing something there, or is that, on the face of it, it doesn't feel equitable?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Carlton, to Councillor Thompson. There is that clause in there where if Owen Sound is getting very busy and they have to reduce the service that they provide to us, then that comes to the point where we need to, I think, revisit the agreement to see, well, is this agreement still valid? Is there an opportunity then that we, in response to that, do we need to increase then again our own staff? So it's, that
Right.
definitely is in there, and to be honest, it is a little concerning. But I think if that were to come to fruition, then perhaps that's when we come back and we revisit this agreement, see if it's still valid or not.
So does it go without saying, so if we're experiencing a really busy time, I guess it goes without saying, but if, say, this spring comes and we're experiencing a really busy time, then we'll have the building official for more than them?
So Mayor Carlton, that's correct. If we're busier than Owen Sound, say we're experiencing some sort of heightened building activity, then they're going to be putting more hours towards our needs than their own needs.
So if we're more busy and they're not, we'll have some more time. If we're both busy, we just won't have any time.
Again, to Mayor Carlton, if we're both busy, then that means that we'll need to look for more building officials to help with that volume of work. And in that scenario, the agreement does stipulate that the next step in that would be retention of a township building official.
So then, is this a shared service or a primary service and a secondary service?
CEO?
Through you, Mayor Carlton, I'll take a quick run on that one. I think it is a shared service insofar as what we're looking at building is a team of 3 staff plus support staff in each municipality to support those municipalities. A team of 3 staff with an extension to a 4th staff person to service the building interests and building needs of 2 municipalities. Whilst that team of 3/4 is able to adequately support both municipalities, it works. The point at which it can no longer adequately support either one of those 2 municipalities, both municipalities have the option to pull out, as Councillor Winter says, on a 30-day notice period. I think one of the key advantages to me is that potential for that next person being a Georgian Bluff staff person. So in the event that this goes in a different direction in the future, and Owen Sound needs to pull back its staff, or we need to pull back our staff, we've got a building inspector who has benefited from being part of a team for however long, 1 year, 2 years, 6 months, however long that team member may have been able to spend in that we retain, and we retain that skill set as a township. So the important thing is the next addition to this team is a Georgian Bluffs staff person who will be retained by the township of Georgian Bluffs as and when and if the agreement ever came to an end. So in the period that the agreement works, it's very much a shared service. The agreement is written in a way that makes it very clear. If ever we get to the point that this is no longer able to provide equal benefits to both municipalities, either one of us can withdraw from it at relatively short notice.
I'm just looking to Ryan to see if you're finished with your questions, Ryan.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the advantage to us there. I must have misheard that. I feel like the advantage seems to be with the people who get to determine who uses the service if we're both busy. But maybe I'm misunderstanding.
So through you, Mayor Carlton, the advantage at this point, we don't have a building inspector. The next building inspector to be brought into the team will be a Georgian Bluffs building inspector who will have the benefit of shared knowledge and learning from the support of a chief building official, deputy chief building official, and another building inspector stroke plans examiner. The township of Georgian Bluffs will never need, it is very unlikely that we will ever see the development pressure that would require us to have a team of 4 full-time building staff of that nature. So our next building inspector will participate in a large team, have the benefit of that skill set, which they will borrow and lean on while work for the extent of time that this shared service model runs. The point at which the shared service model ceases, we retain that expertise in-house.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Thompson, or your concern?
I guess. So then so let's say that I think you're referring to 3.4 happens. So in the event that an additional staff in the form of a position is required, it's agreed that person will be employed by the Township of Georgian Bluffs. Is that correct?
Correct.
So can we play the tape on this then? And let's say Owen Sound gets really busy and says, oof, this isn't working for us. So we're going to enact 3.2 or whichever that number was and say we have to back this service up. So then we're going to say, oh, okay, well then we're going to invoke 3.4, which means we need more staffing, but that'll be our person, right? Isn't that what we're saying the problem is now? We'll be left recruiting from a field where we're finding it difficult to recruit, or am I daft here?
So, to you, Mayor Carlton, that is in essence correct. The benefit being is our recruitment field opens up significantly because we can now take in a junior building inspector and train that junior building inspector up over time with the benefit of a broader team. Whereas if what we've been trying to get is somebody that can be both ultimately be a chief building official, a deputy chief building official, and a building inspector. And that's where we've really struggled in our recruitments. We have had fresh out of school building inspectors apply. One of the challenges that we've had with that is they haven't had seat time being a building inspector. So this actually solves that problem and hopefully opens up a broader field of potential applicants for that position.
Thank you.
Councillor Colbert?
Yeah, I have a couple of concerns as well, following along from Councillor Thompson's remarks. So in the event that we get busy and we need the extra staff member, how quickly really are we going to be able to pivot towards that? And does that leave developers and builders waiting for an additional period of time? That concerns me. I don't think that part of the agreement allows us to turn on a dime or be as flexible as we need to be. But my other concern is around paying for 50% of the CBO's salary and benefits. Now, I don't pay attention to the City of Owen Sound's data, how many permits they process, how many buildings they inspect, but I gotta believe it's more than Georgian Bluffs. How do you arrive at 50-50 if the data doesn't support that? Why is it not 60-40 or 70-30? And what are the numbers that we're looking at that translates into time for the CBO? I'm starting to feel like this is skewed more towards the benefit of the City of Owen Sound than Georgian Bluffs, and we're here to represent our folks. So I'm starting to feel a little concerned to myself.
Councillor Winters?
Thank you. Through you. So further to that, I mean, if I were an employee looking to get into the building services function, would I come and work for Georgian Bluffs when my boss was the City of Owen Sound? Probably not. I see that's going to limit us. I see that's really restrictive. At this point, I think the only way I would feel comfortable with this agreement is we sign this agreement and we move forward. There's a 30-day clause in there. But council gives the direction that we concurrently and actively look for our own CBO. It's important we have a CBO. You're mandated by the government to have a CBO. You have to have a chief building official on staff. You have to have access to one. If Owen Sound pulls out, we lose a CBO, all we've got is a building inspector. We're back to square one. We can't issue our own building permits. We're not servicing our residents. I see this, and it skews Owen Sound, and I don't blame Owen Sound for doing what they've done. I would do the same thing on their side of the fence. But representing Georgian Bluffs, I don't believe this does it, and I still think it leaves us susceptible to liability and to decreased service levels. So I would support this if we had actively and continually look for a CBO. We've used the excuse over the last year or so that we can't actively find anybody, but we haven't actively been looking. Every day somebody wakes up and says, I want to change a life. I don't want to live in Toronto anymore. I want to live in Georgian Bluffs. I want to relocate. My wife's going to transfer, whatever it may be. That changes daily. So I can't continually hang up on the defense that a year ago I couldn't find anybody. I think we need to actively continue to find those positions that were protected as Georgian Bluffs.
For Sholes.
If you're throwing a motion on the floor, I'd second it. We need a CBO.
It's there.
I'd second that. We need a CBO. Georgian Bluffs should have our own CBO.
So I'm looking to the clerk because we do have a motion on the floor. We would need to deal with that and then have a subsequent one, or are we amending the existing motion on the floor?
Through you, Mayor Carlton, I will also turn to the CAO for a bit of comment on this one, given that I do believe recruiting for a CBO in-house would be in contradiction of the proposal. So I'm looking to him for some guidance on how to move forward so that I can guide you procedurally.
The answer. Through you, Mayor Carlton, I think that the motion would be put on the floor would actually be contrary to the agreement as it stands at this point, because it's not something that's contemplated in the agreement, and so we would have to put that back to Owen Sound. So I think if the motion as put on was put on the floor, I think we would have to go back to Owen Sound to say if the agreement has materially changed at that point, and if they're satisfied to still enter into it. So I'm not quite sure how to deal with it. I think it would, and again, I can't put words into your mouth. I think you should, if you wanted to vote on that motion, I think the agreement should be deferred so that we've got time to go back to Owen Sound and for them to consider whether they wish to still enter into the agreement on that basis.
Thank you through you, Mayor Carlton. I would agree with a deferral at this point in time, but that deferral should also include the direction to staff to approach Owen Sound with that change to the agreement.
Go ahead, Councillor Colbert.
We also need to know, so the pilot program is over, that was a contract with an expiry date. Do we have something that covers us for a CBO in the meantime, because we don't want to put ourselves in jeopardy of that?
So through you, Mayor Carlton, I believe we're probably both going to say the same thing. We did keep RSS on, so we still actually have RSS. So if Owen Sound said this was materially impacted the agreement and chose to walk away tomorrow, we would be back to RSS.
So what we're trying to wrap my head around this, what we're looking at then is a deferral of this rather than.
I think this is up to you. Through you, Mayor Carlton, I believe the next step, if there is hesitation, is to vote on a deferral of the motion pending a further report back on whether or not Georgian Bluffs seeking to employ a chief building official would fundamentally be an issue for the agreement.
Do we not have to vote on the motion that's already on the floor?
Not when we're doing a deferral.
Would need a motion to defer.
I'm struggling a little bit. We've got a motion on the floor about a report. And I think we can have a subsequent motion because it gives us 30 days to get out. We're not going to find a CBO in 30 days. You can do a report that says, hey, let's move forward with this. This makes sense in the interim, but we also need to ourselves. It says we can get out in 30 days. It says if we get a workload issue, we can hire our own person. I don't see a contradiction where we can simultaneously, concurrently look for a CBO while still having this agreement in place. And we find a CBO.
Mayor Carlton, the one thing I would add to that, Councillor Winters, I believe you're absolutely spot on, is an agreement is two-way. And so if we both have to, if that is an issue for Owen Sound might decide to not sign the agreement at that point. But yes, I think that's another one.
I think the other thing would be that if we found a chief building official, probably you're not going to hire them tomorrow. There's going to be a time delay, so that would give time to deal with that contract. And from my way of thinking, I get what everybody's saying here. I agree with the idea that we're setting ourselves up to not have the service level that we need to have if Owen Sound gets busier. And if they get busier, then they don't want to be looking after us. They're pulling away from us. They're going to cancel it. I think we need to have a plan in the background working away as we go forward, as they would want to have as well. So, Councillor Coburn?
Sorry, were you finished?
No, I'm finished. That's okay.
I don't believe I ever had a response to my question regarding how it was decided to have a 50-50 split on the salary and benefits of the CBO. Are we 50-50 for work in that department with the City of Owen Sound?
I can take a stab at that. We aren't, I would say, when you look at the building permit activity of Owen Sound compared to Georgian Bluffs, if you look just at the number of permits issued, it's more like a 60-40 split in favor of Owen Sound. They run about 360 to 370 building permits a year. Georgian Bluffs runs around 300 building permits a year. So there is that inequity, certainly between the in terms of the numbers. The 50-50 split, or 50% of the salary for the chief building official is more towards the overall duties of the chief building official. The CBO isn't the one actually doing a lot of the inspections. They're doing the final sign-offs for the building permits, but they're also actively engaged in legal matters and larger building activity. And that's where you get that oversight of the chief building official then becomes more of an equal split between the two municipalities. So it's more than just building numbers. It's the responsibilities of the various players within the building department team.
So thank you for pointing out or agreeing that there's an inequity there. We had, correct me if I'm wrong, a CBO that did some inspections. So that role was split between an oversight, governance, administrative body, plus doing some of the groundwork. But now you're asking us to pay for 50% of that, plus have the inspectors on top of that. It doesn't feel right to me.
And if I may, just so we're crystal clear, the chief building official for Owen Sound does do inspections. He just isn't out doing absolutely every inspection, where our chief building official was.
Councillor Thompson, do you have another question?
It's not it's not a question. I can appreciate, I think that I'm trying to coach my words kind of carefully, because I think that this is an agreement. It's not a partnership agreement though. This is, and I have no ill feelings about what the city is saying, but this is a purchase of service, and it's not a partnership in essence, because there isn't an equity. So this is shifted towards Owen Sound providing us a service, and then they make the decision. And I mean, this is just my opinion, so I'm not saying this as a fact, but I'm not sure that, if this doesn't appear that it's working, or that we have enough resources and you go out and recruit someone else and then hire them, you can have that person, is as much of an advantage as well, we're missing a CBO now and we could go and recruit one. I understand the junior aspect of it, and that might work. That's true. But so I tend to agree with Councillor Winters. It's not like, I don't think that this agreement that we have is okay, let's go in together on this plan and we'll do it for 5 years. It is more like we're purchasing service of your existing CBO. And I don't think it's in bad faith for us to say, I mean, the last time we discussed this, we all said, hey, I think we should have our own CBO. It was a very close vote, and people said we should have our own CBO. So maybe we go ahead and do this and continue to recruit. That's really what we're still saying today. Now that's not a fact. That's my opinion. So that's what I believe.
If I could just ask, how does what we're going to pay Owen Sound potentially for this service compare with what we were paying RSM?
If I may, Mayor Carlton, it is working with this agreement with Owen Sound is less than what we have been paying RSM in the past. They, as an example, they charge out their building inspector at $160 an hour, as opposed to 88 in the agreement.
So there's still definite benefit for us in going with this, with Owen Sound, and then still looking at recruiting on our side. Sorry, Councillor Day, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. I was actually wondering the same thing, wanting a reminder of the cost of RSM versus the shared building agreement. And I'd also be curious to loop right back around to the first question about would RSM provide even less close-knit sort of community service compared to Owen Sound, given I assume that they work with a broader region? That was, it phrased as a leading question, but it was not intended to be a leading question.
Through Mayor Carlton, RSM is a great company. They do work across Ontario, but their head office, I believe, is in Guelph, Kitchener, Guelph, somewhere down in there. So they have a lot of their chief building official and their plans examiners operate across. They have several of each, but their I guess their leadership team is based of the Guelph area. So when we were dealing with them in the past, we were dealing with their Guelph office. They had local staff that were somewhat in the area, but they're essentially all of their work was with us was out of the Guelph office. While I have the floor temporarily, we do have, although we didn't have a mandate, we do have that shared pilot with Owen Sound that we're still kind of quasi operating under while we're trying to sort out this agreement. And if it is council's wish that we do recruit for a CBO, one of the options could be that we might be able to still keep that pilot agreement operating. It's not certainly not as fulsome as this agreement, and perhaps we just extend that for 6 months or something like that.
Is council ready for me to call the question on this? Do we want a deferral? Do we want to amend?
The amendment would be that we're deferring because the original motion is that we're approving the agreement as it stands.
Okay.
Mayor Carlton, it does sound like it would be beneficial for council to defer at this time and for staff to bring back more information about the scenarios that you have suggested, including recruitment of our own chief building official, and to allow staff to have more conversation with the City of Owen Sound officials about how that agreement might look in either scenario.
Does someone want to make a motion to defer then? Councillor Thompson?
Well, I had a question. What
Oh, go
stops
ahead.
us from? I think I'm not putting words in Councillor Winter's mouth, but what stops us from going in that direction where we enter into this agreement and we continue to recruit?
Nothing stops us from doing that.
There's no motion on the floor apart from the original one at this point.
Yeah.
So there's no amendment, no motion being made at this point.
So we can go ahead with that. Sorry, Councillor Winters, go ahead.
I mean, to maybe give Councillor Thompson a little more comfort level, I mean, out of all the options that are out there in the interim, this is better than the contract services from the company coming from Cambridge. We tried that. Our constituents and our contractors and our residents, I don't think appreciated that. I don't think that's where we want to go again. So barring that, this is a better agreement. It's a little cheaper in the interim. But I'll tell you that when we get to notice of motion, I have one coming up at the end of this agenda, right? So I think you all understand what that's going to be. But I think in the interim, if we can do this, it's got a 30-day cancellation clause in there. We're not going to find anybody in 30 days. We're not going to find anybody in 60 days. Let's be optimistic. Let's find the right person. Let's find somebody who wants to come here and work for Georgian Bluffs and not report to the city of Owen Sound.
Councillor Corbett.
No, I guess we're, yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
No, I was just gonna say, I tend to agree.
And I'm trying to be a bit of a mind reader, for you, Mayor, to Councillor Winters. If your notice of motion is going to be that we recruit the CBO, we don't have to have a notice of motion. That's what we're discussing now. That can be in motion right now at this point in time, if you're prepared to do that. And maybe I'm making an assumption, or maybe there's more to it.
No, I was trying to keep them clean and separate. So we got an agreement with Owen Sound that we've negotiated that. It is what it is. But behind the scenes, let's make it known, we're going to be looking for a CBO and beyond this. I don't want to see our staff go back to Owen Sound and say they approved it, but heads up. Two different things going on here. And I think it keeps it clean and separate by doing it that way. They watch the video, they'll know what we're up to.
The other would be, does it need to be a notice of motion later, or is it simply a direction that we're giving to staff that's quite well understood from this discussion?
I'd like it black and white.
Okay. All right, so not hearing anything about deferment here, I am going to call the vote on this one. So all in favor? Opposed? That carries.
I was still reading.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I carried it. It's all good.
There were enough in favor that our vote didn't count. Okay, moving on, the next item, 7.2.2. The recommendation is that report DEV 2025-006, being the informational report for the Dell draft plan of subdivision, application 42T-2022-10 for Georgian Villas Inc. be received for information, and that township staff be authorized to provide a formal commenting letter to the County of Grey, which includes proposed conditions for the draft plan of subdivision with respect to application 42T-2022-10 as attached as Appendix B to this report. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Sholes, Councillor Coburn. I will turn to Michael, or
You, Madam Mayor, we actually have Rebecca Elphick, who is with J.L. Richards, and she's the author of this portion of this report to walk us through.
welcome, Rebecca, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton, and good evening. I'm here tonight to speak to application 42T 2022-10, which is a draft plan of subdivision application for Georgian Villas Inc. You'll remember upon resolution of the Committee of Whole in November of 2023, there was an application to amend the zoning bylaw, application Z0223, which was approved on November 1st, 2023 to rezone the subject lands from the planned development zone to the R1-8 zone to permit residential use of the subject lands with some special provisions that had been previously approved for the lands within the Cobble Beach community. This resolution further directed township staff to forward an amending bylaw to council for adoption following the county's issuance of its draft plan approval its draft approval conditions for the draft plan of subdivision application. And based on this, staff confirmed that the development proposed through the application for draft plan of subdivision, application 42T 2022-10, for 65 new lots to be developed for future residential use by Georgian Villas Inc. is consistent with the Provincial Planning Statement 2024, conforms with the County of Grey official plan and the Township of Georgian Bluffs official plan, and maintains the general intent and purpose of the Township of Georgian Bluffs zoning bylaw. The report before you tonight provides an updated lens to the proposed development, considering some updated policy directions introduced in the Provincial Planning Statement, which came into effect in October 2024, and some further engagement that occurred between the applicant, township staff, county staff, and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation Environment Office. I will note that this application is at the draft plan of subdivision stage, and some of the concerns brought forward are intended to be addressed in the detailed design stage, as noted in the conditions of draft plan approval, which are before council tonight for consideration. And to clarify, it'll be county staff's decision on whether to approve application 42T 2022-10 pending direction from Township Council on the information presented in 2023 and in tonight's meeting, including any of the questions and comments raised by members of the public agencies, including SON, the Conservation Authority, and other interested stakeholders. As staff, the report provides a detailed overview of some of the background context, and as such, staff would recommend that the report be received for information and that township staff be authorized to provide a formal commenting letter to the county, which includes the proposed conditions for a draft plan of subdivision with respect to this application and as attached as an appendix to this report. I'm happy to answer any questions or receive any comments that council staff or members of the public might have at this time. Noting, however, that I believe Mr. Key, the applicant's authorized agent, is also in attendance and may wish to speak to the application briefly. Any of the questions or comments that council staff or members of the public may have at this time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Michael, do you have further comment? We have someone else with us now.
Mayor Carlton, Mr. Key is the planning consultant who's working with GVI on the proposal. I don't know if he's going to provide some comments, and I can then answer questions and provide a summary.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Carlton and councilors. My name is Stephen Chi, and I'm an associate at Design Plan Services. We're the applicant for the proposed draft plan of subdivision known as the DEL. As noted in the staff report I mentioned by staff, this application was before the committee and was deferred in November 2023. Over the past year, the owner and our team have been actively working with the Township, County, GSCA, and SON Environment Office staff to address their comments and concerns. On behalf of the owner, Georgian Villa Inc., we sincerely appreciate the effort of all staff in bringing the draft conditions for consideration today. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, I'm looking to you because we had some questions earlier. How are we answering those first, maybe before I go to the rest of council?
Thank you, Mayor Carlton, and thank you for raising that. As has been mentioned, staff have been working with the consultants, Design Plan Incorporated, their engineers, as well as representatives from Georgian Village Inc. over the last couple of years, certainly since I've been here on this development. In last year, or actually more than a year ago, in November 2023, everything was on this development was put on hold to give the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation's Environmental Office an opportunity to look at both the archaeological aspects and as well as ecological aspects. And then that took pretty much a year to get completed. There was a stage 3 and 4 archaeological investigations undertaken, as well as a very fulsome ecological investigation that was taken. Both of those reviews have now been approved by the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation's Environmental Office, and the archaeological works are now reviewed by the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. So to answer some of the questions that were provided earlier, one of the big questions is the idea of a construction road. And that was brought up back in 2023, and it is a very important fact. The way, I have to step back a little bit and just briefly explain the way subdivision approvals work is the county is the approval authority. Township provides recommendations to the county in terms of draft plan conditions. And a lot of what the township is looking for fall within those draft plan conditions. One of the aspects that the township is really kind of able to zero in on is a subdivision agreement with the developer and the township. And that's one of the conditions that we've asked for. The subdivision agreement essentially boils down, it's essentially a construction contract between the township, other parties like the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation and Great Savo Conservation Authority and the county, as well as GVI and their consultants and contractors. The idea of a construction road, as Mrs. Shanks noted, is actually listed in the conditions of draft plan approval under condition 11B is actually where it mentions construction roads. The details of those roads and the approval of the location of those roads will be vetted through a more detailed engineering review. We really need to look at how those roads are constructed, and in case of the one road would be sitting on the water main, is there a potential impact to that water main? That sort of engineering work still has to happen, and that will be part of the subdivision agreement as we move forward. A staff and our consultants, J.L. Richards and even J.L. Richards' engineering team, are certainly aware of all of this, and they've already been looking through a lot of the preliminary engineering that's already occurred. So I can say with all confidence that there will be a construction road, and it will be connecting. I can say it this way because this is the information I've received from Georgian Villas Inc. and their consultants. The construction road will essentially follow the anticipated or proposed right-of-way for McLeish Drive as it exits the now phase 3 lands and kind of snakes north and west towards Presqu'île Road. That's going to be the main construction access going in and out of this phase 3 lands, and that will also form I would say the spine for future development in that area. And so that access road will then, the construction road I should say, will then also be the construction road for any additional development in that area of Cobble Beach. The details of how that road will be built and its final surveyed location all have to play out still. That has to be part of the subdivision agreement. There's another note that in terms of some staking of sensitive areas, and that was already raised through the conservation authorities approval, saying that they have some regulated areas that they would like to be protected. There are also some very sensitive archaeological and cultural heritage areas that need to be protected as well. And there are, in the detailed comments from the Conservation Authority and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, strong direction to the township and the county to protect those areas. And the details around that, again, will be in the subdivision agreement that's moving forward. And the subdivision agreement itself has to come back to council for approval. So you will be able to see what that agreement says. You're going to see how it, how it kind of works back and forth between the township, the county, and commenting agencies and the development group. The other thing that was mentioned was the soil plant that was used for phases 1 and 2. Certainly, there's with phase 3, there's going to be a lot of work. And the idea of a soil plant really wasn't brought up in our discussions thus far. That usually comes down into the construction implementation and the phasing plans that are still being developed. And again, putting a lot of emphasis on a subdivision agreement, but that's really where all that detail comes into place. Certainly, if you're hauling soil back and forth, that does really impact a road. It really does impact a community, and staff are very much aware of that. So those sort of things, again, we're going to look at through the detailed design phase of this plan. There are conditions in draft plan, conditions that do speak to the construction phasing and timing and how that works. That will be taken with council's permission, taken to the county of Grey for inclusion in their own list of draft plan conditions for this plan. Certainly open to any other questions or suggestions, comments from council.
Thank you. I will turn to council. Councillor Coburn.
Thank you. This is me showing my friend about forgetting about things. So this is going to come back to us with a draft subdivision plan, so that I don't have to make copious notes and then remember to recall them. Is it fair to ask that staff make note of each of these concerns presented to us tonight, come back to us when this returns to us, so that months haven't gone by and we haven't forgotten, and we can address them and look at the plan and make sure all the boxes are ticked up?
Through Mayor Carlton, certainly. That's I've made notes. We do have Mrs. Shank's presentation. I understand. Certainly, we can when we come back with the subdivision agreement. I'll make sure that report addresses those comments and those concerns.
If I may, for you, just a couple of questions. Again, the same point. I realize it's coming back as a subdivision agreement and or a pre-servicing agreement. We have to see a pre-servicing agreement come back before a subdivision agreement, as was proposed before.
That's through Mayor Carlton. That's actually a really, really good point. And at this stage in the game, I'm not recommending a pre-servicing agreement. I believe at this point, with draft plan conditions going to the county still has to approve those draft plan conditions and add their own conditions to it. We have had some discussions with the director of planning from Grey County, and their timing is later February for their draft plan conditions. Their draft plan approval has to go to their planning committee. It doesn't go to full council, just to their planning committee. Once draft plan approval is in place, then, and even before it's in place, I've already noted to the development group that they should start to work on a subdivision agreement with us, as opposed to a draft or pre-servicing agreement. The full subdivision agreement actually gives the township more control, more authority over how this will actually play out in terms of construction process.
That was one. Two is just me being me. We have an agreement, draft agreement in front of us, and then it has two appendices that show drafts, one being a stormwater management peer review and the other being a traffic peer review. There's nothing there for us to even know what the comments were. Is that common that we don't see those peer review comments? It's to me, it's one of those things that we're asked to make educated decisions, and yet some of the details maybe are kept from us.
Through Mayor Carlton, the lack of inclusion of those peer review comments was certainly not nefarious by any means. It was just a scrambling, trying to get reports ready and missing out on the inclusion of those agreements. I can certainly forward those to council. They're highly technical. They're way beyond me. It's engineering speak. Certainly, I can forward those to you if you like. The draft plan conditions do speak to the idea of having to, or ensuring that any of the comments coming through those peer reviews are fully addressed prior to final registration of the plan.
One last thing, which is part of this bigger picture, from an agreement back in 2007, 2008, somewhere in that era. There's an agreement with the developer saying that when 200 building permits were issued, the water line would be extended and upgraded from East Linton to Alexandria Street. Where are we at with that? I'm sure we're over 200 by now.
Yeah. We are certainly more than 200. And the development group is certainly aware that agreement is in place. The draft plan conditions do point back to ensure that they point back to those master agreements and to give us as a township the ability to ensure that those matters are included as part of this plan of subdivision.
So it would be safe to say that the subdivision agreement probably wouldn't be finalized until we have a plan of a water line extension?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Rebecca, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton, and through you, I do just want to bring council's attention back to the recommendation, first being that the informational report be received, and the second, that staff be authorized to provide that formal commenting letter to the county, which include the proposed conditions for the draft plan of subdivision, and would be happy to, if it would be of any benefit to council, provide a general overview of some of the themes that were commented on in the peer review letters issued by JLR. Those are peer reviews of an FSR, so a functional servicing report, a SWIM report, so a stormwater management report, and a traffic impact study. Would be happy to, if Council Winters or other members of council or the public would find benefit to that, I'm happy to provide a general overview, and certainly it was not our intention to omit those peer review documents from the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Rebecca. Speaking for myself, an overview report would be much nicer than a full engineering report. I have a better chance of understanding that, I think. Any other comments, Councillor Colbert?
This is going to be me showing my ignorance, but I've never heard of a soil plant before. And I appreciate the explanation of what that is in your document. I took a drive out there and I was a little shocked at that site right there. I get that, you know, developers need access to soil and so on and so forth, but it does seem odd to me that it would be located there if that's contributing to the construction traffic and the dust. Is that anything we have any control over? And I guess my second, or is that entirely up to the developer's discretion? My second question is, I thought there were limitations on how long you can have construction materials on site. do we have that kind of, I don't know if it would fall under property standards, but it just seems odd to me when you drive at that end of Cobble to look at this. I don't even know how to describe it.
Right.
It's bizarre.
Mayor Carlton to Councilor Coburn. It's when you are looking at active developments, it's not uncommon to see almost like that state of chaos where you have a lot of construction activity, you have the soil plants going on and that sort of thing. There are parts of Cobble that are still actively under construction, and in fact, the Grove, the next report, is in one of those areas. So regrettably, perhaps there's still going to be construction activity on the built portions of Cobble as phase 2 lands start to be finalized and built out. And I can't speak to what has occurred in the past. Can only look forward, and I don't know if that soil plant that's there now is intended to function for phase 3 or not. That's something that we need to look at in that detailed design and the construction management plans that we'll be developing with GVI. They're going to be, when they get into phase 3 and the other future phases that are kind of in the north end, there's going to be a lot of soil management, soil stripping, topsoil retention going on there in its own. And so I can't speak for the engineers. I don't know how they're planning on staging all of this, but I would imagine that phase 3 is large enough that they would need their own soil plan in itself, above and beyond what you see in the existing plan right now. I don't know if that really answers your questions or not.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it does.
Following up on that, can we ask that any soil plan be within the area that the current construction phase, rather than having it go back to a previous area, that it move with construction?
To you, Mayor Carlton, yes, that is typically what we would, as a municipality, when we get into the subdivision agreement and other agreements with the developers, that's very typical that you would see as a phase, unless the phases are touching each other, which these aren't, then you would see that whole north end develop as a separate construction site.
Thank you. Any other comments or concerns here? Seeing none, I will call the vote in this. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. Moving on, the next item is, the recommendation is that council receive staff report DED 2025-007, Cobble Beach, The Grove, part lot control and tide land exemption for information, and that council enact the bylaw so as to remove block 74, registered plan 16M15 from part lot control for a temporary period of 3 years, and that the township supports an exemption from section 51 of the Planning Act for the lands legally described as plan 16M15, block 74, parts 13, 17, and 20. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Coburn, Councillor Day. Over to you, Michael.
We'll try to be very brief on this, because I know you're getting along in the tooth here. So this applies to part of the development known as the Grove, which is Telford Trail. It's at the north central part of, or sorry, the west central part of Cobble Beach. The plan for that area is to develop a number of townhomes. And right now there are parcels that are essentially blocks where these townhomes are going to be built. Part lot control removes that, or opens up that section of that plan of subdivision to allow the developer to essentially build the townhomes, essentially build the foundation of the townhomes first. Have those foundations actually surveyed so we know exactly where the dividing walls are going to be between the individual townhome units, and then create a reference plan, that a draft of which you see in the report appendices, that then kind of like a little mini consent. It creates those actual parcels, deeds for those parcels of lands. Part law control, basically, what the technical term of it is, you're actually removing part law control for a period of 3 years to allow all of it. That's essentially it.
Any questions from anyone? Okay, I will call the question, or call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. We are moving on to corporate services. And the recommendation here is that staff be directed to present a user fee policy and approving bylaw for council's consideration at an upcoming council meeting. That staff be directed to present the 2025 user fees bylaw for council's consideration at an upcoming council meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Winters, Councillor Shouldice, and Sam.
Sturdy enough. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and I apologize for the delay in getting the policy back to you. So this policy is from our June strat plan, where we had a discussion around our user fees. The township has always utilized user fees to subsidize and reduce the tax levy impact of providing our services, just we've never had a formal policy around it before. I'm going to keep going while they're getting the presentation up. So what is the purpose of a user fee policy? The purpose of it is to provide a framework to ensure consistent, transparent, efficient, and accountable approach for establishing and managing user fees across all township programs. It promotes full cost recovery or subsidies where that may be approved by council, for which user fees are charged. This policy would also provide staff with a better guideline for establishing and updating user fees. It also gives council some tools to determine where our user fees may be appropriate if you're seeking to give staff direction to investigate those user fees. I should say, if you do have questions while I'm going through this, please feel free to ask. So when we are looking at the appropriate times to charge a user fee, we want to look at who benefits from the service that we are providing. If it's the community as a whole, it makes more sense for it to be funded from the tax levy. An example of that would be your snow clearing. The ability to charge a user fee for snow clearing would be inefficient and very difficult to determine. How are you determining a fair amount? Who are you charging? So that is more a community-based service that we are providing. Is it primarily community with less of an individual benefit? It can be a mixture of the public and an individual. An example of this would be fire. It is a service you provide, but through previous direction of council, we may be able to have some user fees through Fire Marquee to subsidize the tax levy impact of those fire services. The next, is it primarily an individual with some community benefit? Our community centers are a great example of that. We do try to primarily charge user fees for these. There is still some tax levy impact. Our recreational fees are one that we're still going to have to do work on in 2025 to get those to a more aligned target of council for recuperation rate around user fees opposed to tax levy. So that's something staff are going to work on in 2025 and provide you with more guidance when we're going through 2026 budget discussions. Then we have user fees that are strictly an individual associated fee. Our building permits are a prime example of that. A building permit doesn't necessarily provide the community as a whole a benefit. It is specific to one property. When looking at how to determine you'll see the term full service cost. Right now, we are just looking at full direct costs. There may be potential in future iterations of a user fee policy to have that include some indirect costs. Just right now, we don't have the mechanisms to determine what might be an appropriate indirect cost. When looking at an indirect cost, that may be administration costs around your corporate services. So when we're looking at a direct cost, this is the direct salaries and benefits of an individual or an FTE that may be providing the service, materials and supplies that are specific to that service, or if it is a service that we use contracted external support for, the cost of those. So we already briefly touched on this. Our cost recovery strategy goes back to who is benefiting. How are we wanting to recover for this? We also want to look at the affordability of a service. Is the act of charging a user fee going to greatly entice or deter people from using the service? We also have some services where there may be private sector comparators, and not even only just private sector, but other municipal sectors may also be providing the service, such as our neighboring municipalities. So we wanted to ensure that in some of those services, we are comparable to municipalities. And the impact on demand, we also want to look at any other policies that council may have set and other legislative requirements that may come under Bereavement Authority Act or Municipal Freedom of Information Act, that we want to make sure that our fees are compliant with those external sources. So I've mentioned the term subsidy. A subsidy, in essence, would be when a user fee is not designed to recover the full cost of providing the service. In these instances, the subsidy is from the tax levy. That we're not fully recuperating from a user fee. Some examples of subsidy that we are going to look at, we don't have it in our current 2025 or proposed fees. If there is residential benefit, a reduced rate for if you are a resident opposed to a non-resident. We do have some not-for-profit organizations and township-based youth sport organizations that we do provide a recreation subsidy for. And then also we will look at, if in future iterations, more around our building services, climate and environmental renovations and upgrades. We have not included any of those climate-related ones in a 2025 proposed fees when we get to that. So there may be, whether it's through budget, different times throughout the year, staff may come across a need or council may identify a need for a new user fee. So when we're looking at proposing some new user fees, we'll look at the service and the user fee description. What are the primary uses of the service for which the fee relates? What is the full cost of providing that service? A proposed fee amount or rate, the justification that we may have around implementing the fee. Is it 100% recovery? Is it a subsidized recovery from the full cost? An estimated annual revenue where we are able to anticipate that. If any public consultation was undertaken before the fee is introduced, and if it's associated with a service level or standard, whether that be an existing one or a change to it. When looking at the policy review, we will be reviewing user fees annually as part of your operating or your base or core budget. Each budget cycle, the departments on our fees summary of how are we funding this, there is a line that is user fees. So that is how we review it. Looking at a 2026 budget, we're going to incorporate a more robust review throughout your budget process for your fees. So you're doing that in conjunction with your budget, opposed to too far before or too far after. So you can have some better real-time analysis of what some changes in your fees may lead to impacts around your annual tax levy budget. So we will also have the policy be reviewed periodically with no less than once every 4 years. When looking at responsibilities within the policy. Council, you would be responsible to authorize the user fees and charges each and every year. That is the passing of your fees and charges bylaw. Department heads, they're responsible for ensuring that user fees are administered in compliance with the principles set out in our policy. And then your treasury department would be responsible for ensuring that user fees are charged properly, collected, and deposited into the township bank account. Are there any questions on the policy? So when looking at some proposed changes for your 2025 user fees, we've allocated these out in different schedules. Looking at Schedule A, we've increased, or we're proposing a tax certificate rush fee to have a fee of $100. Right now, we just have one tax certificate fee, and it is at $75. Currently, we make no representation as to the turnaround of our tax certificate request. And we have seen an increased existence where we're getting requests that I need it tomorrow. I need it later today, even, because sometimes the lawyers are letting us know on the day of closing. So it can cause a large disruption. So we're looking to entice people to maybe give us that notice and that period to formally review everything and make sure we are advising them of everything that we should be for the closing to go smoothly. We have Schedule D, which is our water. We're looking to amend water service connection fees to be property line to building inspection fees at $150 each. This is to capture situations throughout the year where water line may be required to be inspected outside of the initial connection. The $150 that we are proposing reflects the full cost recovery of staff time to perform an inspection. It's unknown how many instances we may have these additional inspections, so I can't provide an estimated revenue at this time. We're also looking from Schedule D to remove the plumbing application fee, as it is a duplicate within our Schedule B being building permit fees, and amending our fee for main to curb stop connection fee to reflect the full cost recovery of the connection fee that we are experiencing. So the cost that we're experiencing now is closer to $5,000 each time. So we're looking to recover that full cost associated with it.
Yeah, quick question, if I may, just on the tax exempt portion. I'm not looking for people to pay more tax. But we've bought and purchased water meters, and we're selling water meters and selling replacement parts, but they're tax exempt. How do we get away with that? You've got exempt in here. Because they're really not tax exempt when you're buying and selling things, right?
As a municipality, we cannot charge the HST on it, which is where we don't charge 13%. We charge our cost, which includes the non-refundable part of HST that we do have to pay.
Built into the price.
It's built into the price, yes.
And then the non-municipal fire hydrant operation.
Yes.
Why would we consider operating a non-municipal fire hydrant?
It is for the benefit of our residents that may need it for fire suppression services.
Shouldn't operate anything that isn't municipal owned.
Sure.
There's a huge liability with that, and $69 doesn't cover the liability.
If council, you wish to remove any of these fees,
I don't know that we have any non-municipal fire hydrants. We've got a bunch where the city says they're yours, but they're on city services and different things, but I can't think of where.
So through Mayor Carlton, we do have a number of non-municipally owned fire hydrants are in the condo within Cobble Beach. They're privately owned by the Condominium Corporation, connected to municipal water supplies at this point in time. And the Condo Corporation has sought a lot of support to help with the inspection, backflow testing, and fire flow testing. I think they're the only ones.
Continuing on with Schedule D, we already touched on the non-municipal fire hydrant. Amending our reconnection fee to be a water turn on fee or a water turn off fee. Right now, we are only charging if they are reconnecting to the water, but unfortunately, we do experience costs when we are turning off water and turning on. We do try to deter people from frequently turning off and on, but we do have a few who have, from what I'm being told, historical agreements that that is allowed. When looking at our water system rates, we are proposing a 3% increase on Georgian Bluff's municipal base operating costs. For the Occidental water system, they do unfortunately pay another portion outside of just our base, being the South Bruce Peninsula base. And we are proposing an amendment to the rates to reflect the South Bruce Peninsula rates for 2025, plus the non-resident surcharge. To maintain a consistent water consumption rate among all systems, we're proposing using South Bruce Peninsula's consumption rate of $2.40 per cubic meter, plus the non-resident surcharge of 75% to be $4.20 per cubic meter. We did have in our budget a water rate study. So this is something that we will better be able to determine Georgian Bluff's water rates and not be using another municipality's basis for it going forward. But we need to complete that study to have Georgian Bluff's rates better established and determined. Now, we have historically based ours a bit off of South Bruce Peninsula, so to maintain that historical precedent, that is what we're proposing for 2025 purposes. When looking at Schedule E, this is your biodigester fees. The BioGrid Board directed and provided direction in November of 2018 to catch up on CPI. We are still in that catch-up period. The Bio Board provided a 5% annual cap. So that is what staff have proposed in here. Both Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth are required to pass the fees in order for the biodigester to charge the fees. Schedule I is our recreation. So we have amended Shell Lake Minor Hockey and Shell Lake Figure Skating Club to be township-based minor sports group to reflect inclusivity to all township-based minor sports. They do still have to be a township-affiliated minor sport. So it is not to mean that Home Sound can come and get a reduced rate for our facility because they're a minor sport. And for Schedule J is our operations and your transportation, amending our civic address post fees to reflect our full cost of the posts. When looking at Schedule F, this is our fire fees. To be consistent and comparable to the fire marquee bylaw that was passed, we've included fees to be updated to the current MTO rate / actual invoice cost. We're also looking at including letters to lawyers / insurance companies at a cost of $125 each. A copy of a fire report, $125 each. Requested inspection of $120 per hour. These fees all would reflect the full cost of providing the service. These would only be charged to Georgian Bluffs residents, as Meaford does provide that service for their residents, even though Inter-Township Fire Department may service the area, Meaford still does these types of requests, which is why it is presented as a Georgian Bluffs fee, not an ITMD fee. Schedule M is your cemetery fees. So you did have the staff report back in the fall for proposed cemetery fees. We have incorporated those fees that were approved then. And Schedule O is your short-term accommodation fees. So we have reflected those fees that were previously presented to you through the bylaw. Schedule P would be a new schedule that we would have. It would be around engineering and drainage. So before we onboarded in 2023, our manager of engineering and infrastructure, we never had any fees associated with that. So these would all be new fees for those services. We haven't had a big history lately of development applications that would be subject to engineering. So it's hard to determine what an estimated fee around that. When looking at a lot grading review, we do have a history of those fees that we could anticipate an estimated revenue of about $10,000 each year for the lot grading review. I'm happy to answer any other questions there may be.
Must be extremely clear. I don't see any questions.
We're just going to talk about that lot grading one. Now, that resonates throughout the whole geographic area. It is being a sore point with everybody that applies for a building permit, but it's a necessity. I get it. We've seen municipalities start doing that. I've seen municipalities start doing that, charging a fee and then charging $100 or $1,100 for a peer review and sending it to another consultant. But it becomes a thorn in the side because it seems to slow down the building permit process. I would rather see something where it's built into our building permit. You're building a new house. You need this, this, and this as part of the building permit fee. To me, it resonates as we're not doing this affordable housing thing again. We're just nickel and diming our residents that want to build houses. We as the township made it a mandatory requirement. They've got to do it. Your subdivision agreements make it mandatory, but to bring it out and we start looking at, hey, there's $10,000, that should be in a building permit fee. It just, to me, the flavor doesn't seem right as it's sitting there. I get their necessity. I get why they're there. I get they have to be reviewed. But to have it as a standalone, it just looks like we're heading in the same direction. I don't want to use our neighbors to the east, but they have really, really set the tone with lot grading plans. They charge a huge dollar value to bring them in. They charge you a peer review fee and they send it to a peer review in Barrie and you wait for 3-4 months before you see it back, right? And I just don't want to see that. I want to look like you bring it to us, we'll review it, but it's in the fees. That would be my recommendation.
Michael, comment?
Thank you, Carol. And not to jump on Samantha's thing, but on that note, we do have our own with Kevin McKinn and Shevin John. We now have our own engineering staff that can easily review these. It's just a matter of getting that cost recovery and kind of different divisions in one department sort of thing. But I'm sure we can work that out so it gets married into the building permit process.
Thank you. For now, though, I would take it we need to have it as a separate item because we do need to be charging for it. We're not going to change that at this point.
That is up to council. I would advise it would take a bit of time to determine what that per foot implication, as I believe our building department fees are structured in that sense, opposed to a flat fee. So that would take a bit.
Could I suggest to you, Mayor Carlton, I think the point made is a valid one. I think we can do it. If we were to pass this evening, it allows us to charge it this year. We'll build it into the building permit process for fees and charges for next year, if that made sense.
I'm okay with that. I don't want to become the municipalities that look like that's all we're doing is we've got our hands out for every nickel and dime. We want developers here, but man, we're going to put it to you. That is not the presentation that I want to give. I'm okay with it this year. It is there. I mean, this year's ticking along faster than everybody believes it is ticking along. Snow's going to be gone in 6 weeks, right? No, I'm okay with that, but it's just, I think we need to set that kind of direction, that mindset that we have it blended into one fee. And
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Next item, recommendation that establishment of the 2026 to 2030 Council Remuneration Committee and that the 2026 to 2030 Council Remuneration Committee terms of reference attached hereto as Appendix A be approved, and that staff be directed to prepare an advertisement to invite applications for committee membership for review of council. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Coburn, Councillor Scholdice, and I will turn to the clerk. I think this one's on you.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton, through you. Staff are recommending that council establish the council remuneration committee well in advance of the next election to give the committee time to perform an analysis of council compensation and just to allow them to take their time. So the committee, similar to last term, will examine compensation of neighboring councils. Both myself and Sam will assist the committee in performing their objectives. That includes pulling together relevant data, helping to arrange interviews with council, drafting and circulating a survey to get your feedback as council members, providing meeting support, and also assisting them in formatting their final report. We would also assist them in preparing to make their presentation to council with their recommendations, which we recommend is in advance of December 31st of this year. There aren't a lot of changes from the former term, but there will be, of note, an anonymous survey that's circulated to all of council to ensure that we get accurate feedback from council members without them feeling like they are identified. So just to facilitate more honest feedback coming through that process, just to benefit the committee's work. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Councillor Coburn.
I think we had, I don't know if it was anonymous, but I assumed it was confidential input into the last one by way of not a survey, I don't think, but an interview by a member of the committee. So are you suggesting that will go by the wayside and be replaced by the survey for this time?
Through you, Mayor Carlton, I am suggesting that both take place. So it will be a little bit different in that it will be a one-on-one with a council member and one member of the committee. So members of the committee will be assigned a council member just so that they could get to know and understand the functions of council and the things that you do. And then that survey would be data that we can compile and use to inform their recommendations.
Thank you. And just a second question. In terms of comparators, I'm going to assume that council will have input over who we believe are fair and accurate comparators.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, I do believe that now would be a good time if you have any recommendations about comparators. In the former term, I believe we just took Grey County Council from the Grey County blanket, if you will. So we took all of those municipalities and used their data. But if there is a desire to go broader than that or to exclude some and include others, I'm more than happy to take that direction forward to the committee.
I thought in the past it was Grey and Bruce, or at least some within Bruce County. See a nod, yeah.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, it did depend a little bit on proximity. So if they were neighboring in Bruce, then we would also include their data. So Aaron Eldersley would be a good example of one that we would have included last term.
So that would be an interesting one because I do believe they have a ward system and ours is at large. So I'm not entirely sure if that would be the best comparator, but I can't contribute much to this discussion because I figured we'd have time to think about it, and I'm not thinking well on my feet at the moment. But I do know in the past not having input into comparators has been flagged as a problem. Maybe not so much with this particular exercise, but I would need more time to think about it.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, if I could suggest perhaps staff could use a metric to pick the comparator municipalities being, a similar size, similar population, and things like that to ensure that they are truly comparable in the work that you do as council members to ensure that compensation is directly compared to others with similar.
Thank you. Anybody else with a comment?
I personally don't see an issue with comparing us to Grey County because we sit there with our counterparts at other committee meetings and different things like that. And there's a little overlap in Bruce. Some of your committees, but if I look at conservation, look at the Grey County, whatever else we do, that seems to be where our efforts and our elbow rubbing is with our comparators in gray.
I think one comment I would make is, how do you compare with another municipality? What are you looking at? Size of municipality, number on council? Because some municipalities have a horrendous amount of committees that everyone sits on, where another municipality won't have as many. So it's hard to really compare like for like when there's so many variances. So I think one of the things is we need to be focusing on what are we doing and not comparing ourselves to what somebody else is doing or how they pay for that.
Mayor Carlton, if I may suggest, from experience with the former committee, that was not a higher weighted consideration for the committee in making their recommendations. They had just had that data so that they could determine if Georgian Bluffs as a starting out point was fairly compensating their council members. So it was one of many things that informed the committee's recommendation to council.
Go ahead.
And I'd be interested too, when we, and you probably will do this, intend to do this, but when we look at the comparators, they have a different way of paying. It might just be a monthly, it might be monthly plus a stipend or an honorarium or a meeting fee. So we would need all of those details in order to make a fair comparison.
I think the other thing I noticed in there was a recommendation that it be all Zoom meetings for that committee. How does that work if somebody applies to be on the committee who lives in one of the portions of our township where they don't have good internet access?
Through you, Mayor Carlton, I'm more than happy to offer them in a hybrid format. Last term, they were completely virtual.
Were they? Okay.
Yes, and so I hadn't changed that portion of the terms of reference, but if council would like me to offer them in a hybrid format, we're more than happy to facilitate that.
I think if it were necessary, I mean, it may not be, but I think we need to be open to that if it were necessary. Any other questions? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Next item. The recommendation that council hereby approves both internet and telephone voting methods for implementation in the 2026 municipal election with in-person voter help centers, and that staff be hereby directed to draft a request for proposal for voting services. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Day and Councillor Winters. And we're back to the clerk for this one.
Thank you, Mayor Carlton. Through you, staff had analyzed the election data from 2022 and the approved election methods of other Grey County municipalities. We are one of the last to decide our voting method for 2026. And also due to the voter intake in 2022 being 82% of all residents who voted in the 2022 election, we saw a higher use of telephone and internet voting in that election, and therefore staff are recommending that it be approved for deployment in 2026. And also due to the number of municipalities who have approved both those methods, we do believe that there may be some opportunity for cost savings and collaboration, just with respect to marketing materials, information sessions, and the potential of a joint RFP with those municipalities using the same voting methods. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Next item, and this is where we're into our new agenda format. So updates from members appointed to county council committees and local boards. And I know this was something I had asked for back at the beginning of council term, and it's finally in front of us. And I should have been reporting back from the county all along. It just seemed to fall by the wayside. So I have my first county council report, and then I'll look to anyone else sitting on council who's on other committees where perhaps we're not getting minutes and such back from those. So, so this is an update from the January meetings at the county that I think have more of a reflection for Georgian Bluffs to consider. Terms of reference for the Urban Roads Task Force and the Budget and Finance Committee were amended to include one member from each municipality at Grey County to ensure all member municipalities are involved at the committee level. And with the Urban Roads Task Force, it was found that the group were making recommendations to County Council without having heard from all member municipalities. Where some of the changes affected a municipality not represented on the committee, the lack of input was felt. So this will also mean that input is received prior to a recommendation being made to the rest of County Council. I would note that I currently am a member on the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee, Urban Roads Task Force, Budget and Finance Committee, Greyburgh's Board of Health, and Long-Term Care Committee of Management. Councillor Eccles also presented a notice of motion directing staff to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of the committee structures of County Council. Further direction was given at the January 23rd Committee of the Whole, and a report by staff will be brought back at a future date. And his reasoning in this is, are we looking at going back? If we're going to have a member of every municipality on some of these committees, are we looking at going back to the former standing committee structure where with the mayor sat on 2 of the standing committees and the deputy mayor sat in the other 2. So that a report's going to be brought back to the county on that. Also on the January 9th agenda was a report from staff about the beaver and coyote/wolf bylaw, and that staff be directed to prepare an update to the beaver and coyote/wolf bylaws for council's consideration, with input and consultation from the agricultural sector, trappers, municipalities, provincial ministries, and the public. And January 9th was Rayburn Murray's first council meeting at Grey County as deputy clerk, so we will miss her at Georgian Bluffs, but it's nice to see her stay in the area. At the January 23rd meeting, James Skoniak, the Chief Operating Officer for Bruce Power, presented the annual Bruce Power update to Committee of the Whole, noting that Bruce Power generates 30% of Ontario's electricity. He reviewed the ongoing work of Bruce Power, including completed and ongoing upgrades to the 8 units, highlighting a peak year of investments into their assets. Celebrating 2 years of medical isotope generation, he examined the process for medical isotopes, including approval of use of Pluvicto, a drug to treat prostate cancer. He noted that isotopes have the ability to be produced on every reactor. Mr. Skoniak noted that the Bruce C impact assessment is currently into the federal review process and that they continue to work with and engage with communities. A verbal report was provided about the Roma conference by staff and Warden Matrasovs. Delegations were held with Ministry of Health and Ministry of Transportation. Savannah Myers noted that there was an announcement about additional funding for the Rural Ontario Development Program and the strategies that will apply to rural municipalities. In addition to the report that I had shared with Council, and thank you, Councillor Coburn, for yours as well, I attended a special announcement made by Conservation Ontario Monday evening about funding that has been received for Maitland Valley, Niagara, and Thunder Bay Conservation Authorities for shoreline remediation and coastal resilience. Grey Sabla and Nottawasaga had also applied but did not receive specific funding for this. On the last day of the conference, I attended an event at Toronto City Hall hosted by Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative together with Conservation Ontario, outlining how the 2 organizations are working together and encouraging non-member municipalities to join. I would note that Grey County is a member and that Georgian Bluffs used to be a member 2 terms of council prior to this. So that's the end of my report, and I'll try to keep up to date with it in the future. Councillor Coburn.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Yes, go ahead.
I've fielded some phone calls from folks with concerns around the contract for the climate action coordinator at the county not being renewed. And the questions were, does this mean that there's not someone assigned to climate action at the county level? And if that's the case, they were wondering what council's thoughts were on making that particular decision.
So there is definitely someone at the county looking after the climate action portion of because we have that plan in place. I think the position that wasn't renewed had been a contract position, so it had an end date to it. Anything else? Anyone else have a committee? Councillor Sholay.
I said this last week, I think it was last week, I was on Zoom, when was that? Anyways, I sit on the physician group committee and we've got 2 physicians, one in Saltwell and one in Wyerton. I'll say it again, if you don't have a family doctor and you're still here listening, go call up the Saltwell Family Health Team and the Wyerton Family Health Team.
Thank you. Councillor Colbert.
So I have a question for you, Councillor Schuldeis. For years, folks have been told in Ontario, if you need a family physician, sign up through Healthcare Connect. Lots of concerns being expressed through the media now with giving that very message to people that if you want a doctor, get in line in Walkerton, get their hours early or give them a call. Why do you have an understanding of why we're telling people to jump the queue and call? Is Healthcare Connect entirely being abandoned?
I can't speak to Healthcare Connect, and I can't speak to the reason why we're jumping the queue. I don't think that's something that we're instructing people to do, actually, but what I am telling people to do is go call the family health teams because they are actively taking patients to their rosters. So if you're able to get in and have a meeting with them, and that's perfect. That's what we're telling them to do.
So they're the ones that have been on the wait list for 5 or 6 years. Those ones are not being looked at. It's just whoever happens to call. Okay.
Any other updates from anyone else? Okay. No unfinished business, no new business. Does any member wish to provide a notice of motion or notice of discussion? Councillor Winters.
Thank you. Through you, I would like to put a motion on the floor that we direct staff to actively recruit a chief building official for the municipality.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn to the clerk. We're at notice of motion. So can we take that as a direction or?
It should come back.
It should come back to the next
What we
meeting.
voted on tonight, it's to come back.
Yeah, okay.
Through you, Mayor Carlton, I do have a procedural technicality. Councillor Winters did formally make a notice of motion to this effect. That was voted down. Therefore, this item would be a reconsideration and it would need to be brought forward by somebody on the prevailing side, as in somebody who voted against it.
I did my motion, did vote it down.
Go ahead.
It was never seconded.
I don't
It was seconded, but
I don't recall voting on that particular motion. My suggestion was to deal with it right then and there when we were talking about this particular topic, but
Apologies through you. I do believe it was withdrawn as a result of not getting a seconder. My apologies.
So we can proceed with it now as a notice of
Yes.
motion. Okay, so it's a notice of motion to come back at the next meeting.
and a second topic on a notice of discussion. I was under the impression last spring when we had the delegation from GEI, Gansview Manor, or GM Blue Plan, whatever they're called today, about the Emery Bridge, that they would be presenting design options to council for consideration. And then I had asked about it, I believe before the holidays, and I said a report was forthcoming. That bridge tender is out right at the moment for public tender and public pricing. I thought we as a council were going to look at design options to determine what was cost effective, what made sense and what not. I was totally dismayed on Monday when I got back to work. Opened my daily tenders and Georgian Bluffs has a tender out for the replacement of the Emery Bridge. That's not where I thought we were headed. We had 2 discussions about it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I did believe that we were looking at design options to come back before Christmas.
That will come back as the next meeting as well. Okay. Okay, we are now ready to go into closed session. So the recommendation is that council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs move into closed session at 7:08 p.m. in the Sarawak room with the CAO, Deputy CAO, Director of Corporate Services, Director of Development and Infrastructure, and Manager of Legislative Services / clerk remaining in the room to discuss 12.1, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, exemption K of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, water service extension negotiations. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Schultes, Councillor Winters, any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? We are now in closed session.
Georgian Bluff has a lot of activities to do. It's really nature driven, and it's like the community is very nice, very friendly. And a lot of the locals come here every single day and they think of it as their therapy.
We're the Farouk family. We started farm on the lake, and the community, everybody around it, the support structure, the township has actually made us to who we are today. And now that we have this set up, this whole operation is well received by the community. People drive down from far, far away to do camping, glamping with us.
A lot of people come from far away to see the goats, and they're really amazed. Sometimes we feed the babies in front of them.
When we think about Georgian Bluffs, it's really the Reiki forest bathing that comes to my mind. I'm a Reiki master teacher, and we were looking to bring our people for a retreat, and this property just popped up, and we realized that behind it's a beautiful forest. Every time we are driving up, I feel so relaxed. The air is amazing.
If you're an outdoor enthusiast, there's never-ending things to do. There's the hiking all over through the escarpment. There's the bay, the water, if you're into water sports or sailing. And of course, pickleball is growing fast and it's all over the place right now. So there's lots to do.
What we enjoy the most about Georgian Bluff is having access to the beautiful nature around us, the cultural impact from the First Nations to the local artists.
The trails and so many great things to do, and lots of business opportunity here, and tourism as well to support our business.
First off, what I love about the area is the scenery. It's absolutely beautiful. Like, it's right in the name of the municipality, the Bluffs. Another thing too that I noticed from living through here is all the small communities throughout Georgian Bluffs. They're very unique, and they might be very small, but we're very big with heart. Everybody looks out for each other, takes care of each other, and just the way locals support locals. So the ability to have a local business and prosper is very apparent here in Georgian Bluffs.
People are more genuine here. People are more sincere. They're kind. They know the word please and thank you. It's the way life used to be. It's more simpler. You feel like you're part of something.
The Township of Georgian Bluffs as a municipality is proud to serve its residents, whether it be looking after infrastructure, looking after our roads, grading our gravel roads, looking after our parks, our trails, our community centres, our ice arena, or providing the services that residents rely on every single day when they come to our township offices. I'm proud to lead a team which is here serving the residents of Georgian Bluffs every single day.
What we'd like to see Georgian Bluffs going forward is really, more people coming to experience this beautiful energy, this relaxed energy, because over here in Georgian Bluffs, I can hear the wind, I can hear the trees talking. It's just amazing, really relaxing.
Welcoming more people, yet with the same foundation and principles of community, of respect, and of morals.
It would be great for Georgian Bluffs to continue to support, nature and the beauty that we have here, and to keep our area clean and beautiful.
I hope to see more local businesses, more sustainable living, and more families just moving up here and living and prospering off their land and their property.
For me and my family, Georgian Bluffs means being close to nature. Having the escarpment to hike and the water of Georgian Bay at our doorstep is something that draws us to being part of this community. The family-friendly neighbourhoods, the fact I can connect with my neighbours and see them on the street and say hello, and I know the people I'm seeing each day, is something which for me is something I treasure and my family treasures about being in Georgian Bluffs.
The Welcome Package is a tool that was developed by GB LIP's subcommittee community. It was a tool that was supposed to be used for municipalities to share information with new residents, specifically immigrants coming to their communities, in a consistent way across Grey and Bruce counties. And what's great about it is the package was actually translated into multiple different languages.
As my own personal lived experience as an immigrant, not everything was accessible to me with the click of my hand. But the Welcome Package, if you look up the municipality website, all the information that you need about the schools, about the local hospitals, about the local grocery stores, about the settlement service provider in your area. So I think it is a one-stop shop for all your settlement needs.
Georgian Bluff has a lot of activities to do. It's really nature driven, and it's like the community is very nice, very friendly.
We started Farm on the Lake, and the community, everybody around it, the support structure, the township has actually made us to who we are today.
Every time we are driving up, I feel so relaxed. The air is amazing. I can hear the wind, I can hear the trees talking. It's just amazingly relaxing.
If you're an outdoor enthusiast, there's never-ending things to do. There's the hiking all over through the escarpment. There's the bay, the water. If you're into water sports or sailing, of course, pickleball is growing fast and it's all over the place right now. So there's lots to do.
What we enjoy the most about Georgian Bluff is having access to the beautiful nature around us, the cultural impact from the First Nations to the local artists.
First off, what I love about the area is the scenery. It's absolutely beautiful. Like, it's right in the name of the municipality, the Bluffs. Everybody looks out for each other, takes care of each other, and just the way locals support locals. So the ability to have a local business and prosper is very apparent here in Georgian Bluffs.
People are more genuine here. People are more sincere. They're kind. They know the word please and thank you. It's the way life used to be. It's more simpler. You feel like you're part of something.
It would be great for Georgian Bluffs to continue to support, nature and the beauty that we have here, and to keep our area clean and beautiful.
For me and my family, Georgian Bluffs means being close to nature. Having the escarpment to hike and the water of Georgian Bay at our doorstep is something that draws us to being part of this community. The family-friendly neighbourhoods, the fact I can connect with my neighbours and see them on the street, say hello, and I know the people I'm seeing each day, is something which for me is something I treasure and my family treasures about being in Georgian Bluffs.
Georgian Bluff has a lot of activities to do. It's really nature driven, and it's like the community is very nice, very friendly. And a lot of the locals come here every single day and they think of it as their therapy.
We're the Farouk family. We started Farm on the Lake, and the community, everybody around it, the support structure, the township has actually made us to who we are today. And now that we have this set up, this whole operation is well received by the community. People drive down from far, far away to do camping, glamping with us.
A lot of people come from far away to see the goats, and they're really amazed. Sometimes we feed the babies in front of them.
When we think about Georgian Bluffs, it's really the Reiki forest bathing that comes to my mind. I'm a Reiki master teacher, and we were looking to bring our people for a retreat, and this property just popped up, and we realized that behind it's a beautiful forest. Every time we are driving up, I feel so relaxed. The air is amazing.
If you're an outdoor enthusiast, there's never-ending things to do. There's the hiking all over through the escarpment. There's the bay, the water, if you're into water sports or sailing. And of course, pickleball is growing fast and it's all over the place right now. So there's lots to do.
What we enjoy the most about Georgian Bluff is having access to the beautiful nature around us, the cultural impact from the First Nations to the local artists.
The trails and so many great things to do, and lots of business opportunity here, and tourism as well to support our business.
First off, what I love about the area is the scenery. It's absolutely beautiful. Like, it's right in the name of the municipality, the Bluffs. Another thing too that I noticed from living through here is all the small communities throughout Georgian Bluffs. They're very unique, and they might be very small, but we're very big with heart. Everybody looks out for each other, takes care of each other, and just the way locals support locals. So the ability to have a local business and prosper is very apparent here in Georgian Bluffs.
People are more genuine here. People are more sincere. They're kind. They know the word please and thank you. It's the way life used to be. It's more simpler. You feel like you're part of something.
The Township of Georgian Bluffs as a municipality is proud to serve its residents, whether it be looking after infrastructure, looking after our roads, grading our gravel roads, looking after our parks, our trails, our community centres, our ice arena, or providing the services that residents rely on every single day when they come to our township offices. I'm proud to lead a team which is here serving the residents of Georgian Bluffs every single day.
What we'd like to see Georgian Bluffs going forward is really, more people coming to experience this beautiful energy, this relaxed energy, because over here in Georgian Bluffs, I can hear the wind, I can hear the trees talking. It's just amazingly relaxing.
Welcoming more people, yet with the same foundation and principles of community, of respect, and of morals.
It would be great for Georgian Bluffs to continue to support, nature and the beauty that we have here, and to keep our area clean and beautiful.
I hope to see more local businesses, more sustainable living, and more families just moving up here and living and prospering off their land and their property.
For me and my family, Georgian Bluffs means being close to nature. Having the escarpment to hike and the water of Georgian Bay at our doorstep is something that draws us to being part of this community. The family-friendly neighbourhoods, the fact I can connect with my neighbours and see them on the street and say hello, and I know the people I'm seeing each day, is something which for me is something I treasure and my family treasures about being in Georgian Bluffs.
Okay, council went into closed session under open meeting exemption K of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. As a result of closed session discussions, the following actions were taken. Direction was provided to staff with respect to ongoing negotiations for water service extension to Georgian Bluffs residents. And next on the agenda is adjournment. Next regular meeting will take place next Wednesday, February 12th at 5 p.m. with a special joint council meeting with the Township of Chatsworth scheduled for February 10th at 5 p.m. to discuss the biogrid. And if there's no further business, I will now call for adjournment of this meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Pringle, Councillor Winters, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you.